Welcome, welcome. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining us for this session of the Muses. And just quickly, reminder, intro who we are. We've got Katie Steinle in purple, who's human design specialist, Reiki master, Qigong instructor, and owner of Discover Your Design. Chris Alicia, founder of Ascended Warrior, providing spiritual and mindful mentorship, to veterans. It's too early. And Stephanie Victoria, founder of Kalyana Therapeutics, focused on transformational healing at the DNA level. And I am Kat Bendor, owner of Kat Bendor Healing Communication. We are excited to see you all here today. And if you feel called, please share this out. We are going to be awarding a free session to the person who shares it out the most today with myself. You'll get to experience what I do, and we'll leave it as a surprise. So we can just jump right in today because I'm excited to get started. Today we're talking about intuition. And we thought it'd be fun to discuss at least a little bit kind of how we all came into ours, what sort of experiences we had. And see if, feel free to comment, see what you guys relate to, and sort of if you had any similar experiences. What do you think, guys?
Yes, I love it. I could talk about this all day.
I say I'm really excited for this as well. When I first started the spiritual journey, I really thought there was one way to have intuition and that I was just doing it straight up wrong. So I'm really excited to hear how you ladies built up your intuition, because everything I was taught just was not working. And it ended up, I just had to find my own path. And I don't know if you guys relate to that, but I just felt like I was not special enough to have intuition.
Oh my gosh, I can so relate, because I remember, I don't know, like even when I was a little girl, like I would sit in my room and I would just try, like I would see stuff on TV where, people could do telekinesis and like move stuff with their mind. And I would sit there and like stare at objects. And I just wanted like so badly to like make it happen and to like be magical and like read books, like thinking, there was like a logical way, right, to open this up inside of me. And now, like even today with like YouTube and, of course, when people seem to share their stories, like we see them in their success, right? And we just assume, like I do this with movie stars too. You just assume like they are just naturally like that, gorgeous, beautiful, whatever it is. And you don't see all the back work, that people are doing to work on themselves and to open themselves, and like the process that it really is. And it's not something that you can read a book, or what I found, like find in externally driven ways. It's more about turning inward and, focusing on increasing your vibration with self-love and compassion and grace and all of those things. And that's what kind of starts to open you up more and more and more into like more of a lucid state of being. Do you guys agree?
I do. I think I would say for me, a lot of the self-love and grace developed as the intuition developed and as the path changed. So it wasn't so much, and I can totally relate to everything everybody said so far. I remember thinking, because I've had experiences most of my life, but I do remember thinking, no, I don't do this. This isn't, whatever, because it doesn't look like this person, this professional person who showed up on some platform, polished and practiced, and, I can't do what that person does. So clearly I don't do this, or that person, or that person, or that person. And for me, what was interesting was I so badly wanted to take classes, but because of what was going on in my life, I was in chemotherapy when this really started to come up in a different way, and my brain didn't work. I couldn't retain information. And additionally, there were financial issues because we were going through a major medical crisis. And so there wasn't a lot of extra money there wasn't any extra money. Who am I kidding? There wasn't any money to pay somebody to take a class. And I was really bummed about it. I would have loved to have dived into somebody else's method and had somebody just teach me how to do what they do. That's what I was looking for at the time. And what ended up happening was I ended up taking a journey into myself, which is the only journey that's worth taking, and discovering the unique ways in which I work, which is why I think, I mean, I'm not going to knock anybody's classes. However, anybody is comfortable getting from A to Z, wahoo.
Mhm.
And I think there's a fantastic benefit in being supported while you do you, rather than learning to do what somebody else does. I think that's where all the magic lies, in my opinion.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I had one time gotten a recommendation for this amazing doctor, and he's also got very, strong metaphysical, intuitive background. And so, somebody had said, "Oh, you got to go see him. You got to go see him." And he was actually down in Oregon, and so I ended up having to, drive, and it was, kind of involved, right? I had to get a hotel room because I, was going to see him for like, 2 or 3 days in a row. And I mean, he was gifted. Don't get me wrong. This man is brilliant, but he had such a specific way that he could see, like that his gifts, manifested, and he was trying to teach people this very, very specific way. And it just instantly, like I'm listening to this and I'm like, I can't even really understand and picture what he's trying to describe. And it just set me up for this whole, kind of negative self-talk. And I was always trying to compare myself with him, and I couldn't quite get it, or I couldn't quite see it the way that he was seeing it. And so, yeah, not to say, classes aren't good, because he expanded, the way that I can, see things, and, that makes us all more open and intuitive. But yes, I totally agree with you, Kat. Like, I think it's good to have mentors, but it's also good to spend just as much time in your own space and your own experiences. And what I found is my greatest and most intuitive experiences have happened when I wasn't even purposely trying, and I think you get in sometimes to like, these classes, or, following these specific protocols, and it's like you get too much into your mind and too much out of your heart, and so it's finding that balance. And Qigong, they call it the Wu Wei state. And it's almost that state of, you really want to aspire to be in that state of right in the morning when you've been in dreamland and you're just coming, awake, right? It's almost before you first open your eyes, right? So you are almost, you can still remember you're like coming out of the dream state, but you're somewhat aware of, the state around you. And it's that perfect balance of being in all worlds at once. And so that's really what you want to strive for.
You know what's so interesting about that is my first significant animal communication experience, like really detailed, significant, deep, was as I was falling asleep. So same state. So I'm surmising from that you can probably do it when you're going to sleep or when you're waking up, either which way. But it might be easier to do it for some people, depending on when you're falling asleep, setting an intention and just kind of letting go as you go, and see what happens. I mean, just something else to play with, and see what happens.
There's a danger in the community with mentors, to piggyback on what Kay was saying, that students, they'll take validation or lack of validation to heart, to the point where they will not pursue their own intuition, thinking that, oh, that one person said I couldn't do it, or this was not my field, or this was the wrong path for me. And I was actually talking to somebody yesterday, and he mentioned this because I asked him, he was channeling for me spontaneously. And I asked him, I was like, am I on the right path? You know, a really normal question for people. Just tell me I'm going the right direction. That's all I care about. And he laughed at me. He says, nobody can tell you you're doing the right thing but you. And that's spot on with the intuition. That's spot on with this world. Nobody can tell you that you can't do something. They have no clue what your path is. Only you know. So that is a big fear in the community when we go out and we seek this validation from mentors or groups or anything else, that negative feedback will somehow stifle your growth. So don't take that to heart. That there is nobody else can tell you you're doing it wrong, period.
Don't take that to heart. And also, piggybacking on what you said, even if somebody doesn't flat out say to you, I think, this is really funny. I remember when I first really early on started practicing the animal communication with a friend, and we devised this experiment with the dog where we were both going to ask him the same questions and see if we got the same answer, which is ridiculous for a bunch of reasons that we can talk about at a later date. But we didn't get the same answers. And that's a common thing, not just in animal communication, in anything. It's a common thing because we all bring whoever we're communicating with, they're, you know, on the other side of the veil. We all have our unique styles and guides and life experiences, and they use our life experiences to help clarify or bring the message through. And so you're not going to get the same information that I'm going to get, even if we're having the same conversation, and I'm not going to express it the same way that you're going to express it, even if we got the same information or interpret it the same way. And it's all valuable and valid. So all of us, and valid, not in, valuable and valid. And so all of us are being used all the time to the highest and best benefit that we can be involved in with whoever we're involved with. And if you went to 5 different people who practice an intuitive art of some sort, I don't like the word art, but if you might get 5 different pieces of information, and they might all support each other, and they might be slightly different, and they might be totally unrelated, and that does not mean that they're not completely accurate. And
I always give the example of, you know, when 2 of us walk into a coffee shop and look around at the people in the coffee shop, we're all going to focus in on different people just because of our own perspective and, you know, the way that we're vibrationally in tune to certain things. And that's perfect and that's beautiful. And you're right. That's why, you know, like everybody's saying, is you really just have to take it all in, you know, be open to all the information, but then have a strong filter for, you know, what resonates with you, right? What resonates with your perspective on things.
Yeah, and to build just really quickly on what you said, also, if 3 different people ask you the same question, you're not going to necessarily answer them the same way. I mean, if somebody says, yeah, you're probably going to answer them the same way. But if somebody asks you something about yourself, the response always takes into account so many things, how you're feeling in that exact moment, what the person who's asking you brings to the table, what you perceive their intention to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's interesting to think about that. And I think after you do it for a while, you start to see all that come into play. That starts to become very clear as we understand the conversations that we have out loud, verbally, that we can all hear, you know, together. When an infant starts talking this way, they have more trouble and it takes a whole lot of practice. But by the time you're 10 years old, there's a lot of other stimulus that comes into play that you completely understand, and intention and reading what the other person is bringing to the table or expecting or wanting, all that kind of stuff. And it's no different here. Why would it be?
Yeah, they also talk about the messages that psychics get or anybody else get. Part of that message is also for them. The message is always mirroring the messenger. So it absolutely makes sense that you get 3 different answers, because what's going on in their life is going to resonate with what's going on in your life and going to reflect in how they portray that message. That's just very important to understand that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they're opening a book and all of them are reading off of page 2, paragraph 4, and it's just verbatim. That's how you know you're a psychic, if I can read down the list. I wish it was sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, that would be great.
It would be so much easier.
If they could just give really clear directions. I'm very much a street sign type of girl. Give me some directions. Am I going the wrong direction? Do I need to take a U-turn? Am I on a one-way street going the wrong way? It's just for safety. Give me some
Yeah.
direction.
And
Right.
what I would say to that is that's where journaling in this endeavor particularly becomes extremely valuable, because lifetime, a lot is not clear oftentimes in life. But when you know, hindsight is 2020, when you go back and look at your experience, whether you're just thinking about them or you've, you know, taken the time to journal them and you go back and read, it becomes so clear. It's like, oh yeah, there was that road sign and that road sign and that road sign. What was I doing? I didn't see that.
Well, and that makes me think of synchronicities.
I love synchronicities.
Synchronicities are like I want to know. Okay, so I want to know, the people watching, like, what are the synchronicities that you see? What are you noticing? And you girls, like, what are the first kinds of synchronicities that showed up for you? When did you notice them? How early on in the journey was it? Because that for me was like a big, huge, that when you talk about road signs, Chris, it's like that for me was road signs everywhere. Like, whoa, what is this synchronicity thing? And how have I never noticed it until now?
I have a ridiculous one.
Shoot.
Totally ridiculous, unbelievable synchronicity. I was driving to Colorado with the dog, and things had already started to happen in a fairly significant way. And I was doubting. And I remember we had spent the night in a hotel, had just gotten on the highway, and I thought St. Francis of Assisi popped into my head and was communicating with me, popped into my space, into my energy, and was communicating with me. And I was like, well, isn't that cute? Either you're insane or I don't know, like, you really want that to be true. That's kind of interesting. I didn't really know that about you, Kat. Like, just, I didn't believe it at all. And it popped in again. He popped in again, and I had the same, utter disbelief, truly. But then a part of me was like, well, God, what if it is true? How would I know? I mean, it's just me in here. I'm like, how would I don't know. So I do remember I was picking something up off the thing by the shifter in the car, whatever you call that. And so my intention was to run her down there for
Whatever that thing is.
What'd you say, Chris?
It's whatever that thing is down there in your car that the stick thing. It's just so tragic. Sorry, please continue.
Anyway, I thought in my mind as I was reaching down, if you're real, if this is really true, give me a sign. I need something. I look down, I look up, and there is a literal green road sign on the side of the road, on the side of the highway, that says St. Francis of Assisi.
No.
I almost crashed. Because I was trying to, do I pull over? Do I back up? If I back up, will it still be there? Like, is it real? What the hell?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. Because I do think that the synchronicity is opened with your level of awareness. I think the synchronicities are always there, but it just depends if we're just too in our mind and too focused on the future, and we're just, blinders on, moving forward. You don't notice that. I mean, you could have driven right by that sign, right? And not even seen it because you could have been so focused on whatever,
Yeah, or not ask for, I used to ask for, show me something, I need more. I used to ask all the time. I mean, I did, whatever. and they didn't show me 100% of the time either, but a lot.
We're also very literal. And so I've noticed that with my own, I'll ask for something so specific. And then I'm like looking around 360. I'm like, where is my, orange banana? I asked very specifically for this orange banana. I'm not seeing it. But what I learned through practicing, just like what you're saying, asking for something, asking for validation, was the more I lived comfortably in my imagination, the more I just trusted. It doesn't matter if it's my imagination or my intuition. In fact, those lines are so blurred that they probably don't even exist. If it's popping into your head, it's there for a reason. Why would that name just pop in your head for no reason? It's there for a reason. So if you are getting comfortable living in your imagination, your life is just going to be filled with more magic. It's like being a kid again. The world starts to interact with you.
It's that whole law of attraction, because when you live in a space of wonder, you attract more infinite possibility and wonder. And you're right. I think that's the number one place to start, is to just opening up your imagination, giving yourself time to daydream and do all the things that we did as kids and we got yelled at for, right? But when you live in that space, I mean, when you think about Tesla and Einstein and, Jobs and all of these great people, where does your creativity lie, right? It lies in starting to imagine what is possible that's not in front of you and being open to it. And then I'm sure they got, creative input and then validated it in the physical world. And that's how they just started to bring all of this through. And I was reading a book by, who's the gal that wrote Eat, Pray, Love? And did you guys see the movie?
Yeah, I saw the movie. I don't remember who wrote the book.
Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. But she did a follow-up book, and it was all about creativity. And she is an author, and she was just talking about, when you get these, creative bursts, like most artists and inventors and all of these people, they are just these little moments where somebody has been in their imaginative space, right? And that infinite possibility space. And it's usually like a download. Like she will get an entire book downloaded, like the premise of it, like instantly, or an idea, and it's just because we all are transmitters, right? And our antennas on our head, like if you just kind of open it up and you're in this range of, well, what could be possible? I wonder, well, what if I could, be on the sun, what would that be like? And then you tune in to that precise higher level of knowing, knowledge, whatever, insight, whatever you want to call it. And it's just magic.
Yeah. Elizabeth Gilbert is the name we've gotten. Beth Walgren put this in our the text, the comments. Elizabeth Gilbert.
Thank you, Beth. If anybody has not yet seen that movie, I think that's like my all-time favorite movie. It's just awesome.
How incredible would that be to just immerse yourself in another culture and just joy, immerse yourself in joy for months. Oh,
Incredible.
oh,
I've done it. It's a lot of fun.
oh,
Of course you
God
have.
bless.
I've done it. I did it for a year. I went away.
Tell us where you went.
I was young. I was very young. I was 18, but I lived in Belgium for a year.
Oh my gosh.
What'd
Yeah.
you do?
I was a foreign exchange student, but the school that I went to, they couldn't do anything for me besides just let me come be a student. I didn't get a certification, or like I had already graduated high school and then just went abroad and did my senior year of high school again, partially.
Wow. Wow.
It was so much fun. I mean, I literally spent the year just immersed, just like you were talking about, just completely immersed in the culture and traveling and sightseeing and learning and experiencing and just being there. And it was freaking amazing. It was something that I could never be who I am now in any way, shape, form, or fashion without. And we know like everything affects our path and our perception and viewpoint, and all of that experience builds us into who we are. But that was just I feel like it's such a big chunk of who I am.
That's so cool, and I didn't know that. What a brilliant way to accomplish that. That's cool.
And to do it when you've already done your senior year and graduated. So you really, the responsibility is somewhat off, and you can just
Yeah, I remember the headmaster when I met him telling me this, like, we have no certificate we can give you, we can't supply you with anything, you're welcome here whenever you'd like, wink wink, you know, like, oh, what do I do with that, you know, besides take it and run and have a whole lot of fun, which is exactly what I did. Learned a lot about myself and the world and people and man, yeah, super cool.
Did you even learn the language when you were over there? Or you're like, I'm not.
Oui, je parle français. Si tu veux, on peut parler le français.
I'm assuming that's a yes. I don't speak French.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting because, you know, like we were saying, we all kind of come from different backgrounds, and, you know, we see things in a different way. And there's so many different ways to experience being intuitive, and it just, you know, it looks different for everybody. So some people, you know, what are the clairs, you know, there's the clairaudience where, you know, like Kat said, you know, she heard a voice speaking, you know, Francis of Assisi. And then, you know, you were talking, Stephanie, about, you know, the synchronicities happening, or, you know, there's the people that, you know, have the clear, the clear seeing, the vision. So what, I'm just curious, like, and for the viewers, please, like, I'd love to hear, like, maybe we could all just talk about how our intuition shows up for us, you know, it's probably different. And I bet people out there will relate with, you know, each of us. So Steph, do you want to start?
Yeah. For me, so much is synchronistic. I see synchronicities, I see alignment or misalignment. I very clearly see that too in what's going on around me. And if I'm doing a session with someone, right? Or, you know, anything like that, where I'm connecting one-on-one with someone, it shows up very clearly for me, like the picture reel in my mind's eye, right? I see things playing out kind of like a movie in my mind's eye. And when it's not those things, it's always this very clear knowing. Like, you could ask me a question and I might have no idea if what you're asking me means anything in any other context. Like, I just had zero frame of reference for what you're talking about, right? And if you ask me the question, I'm definitely going to be able to give you a yes or no answer. And with no explanation on why or how, other than it just is what it is and I know.
I think mine are very similar, but reversed. So my knowing is probably my strongest. And I didn't realize I've been using this my whole life, especially in the military. I'd look at a lot of different information, and all of a sudden the connections would just pop into my head. Be like, well, this is related to that. And there's no evidence to support that, but I know inherently or innately that those information is connected. I just have to prove it now to the rest of the world. So that it doesn't come to me as another voice or anything like that. It's a deep sense that that is the true information. So I get that a lot. And only recently when I started doing the Akashic Records sessions for people, I realized that my intuition was coming in picture form for other people. So I would describe the picture that I was seeing, and then they would attach the meaning that it meant to them. And that would allow the picture to almost like, it's like a photo lens just opening up. The more I could see it resonating, the more the picture would just open up and allow me to see finer details. So those are the two that I use the most.
Yeah, that's interesting, Chris, because I'm kind of the same way. If it's something to do with me and my own intuition, it is more of the just clear knowing and the voice. I have like an internal, like we all have, you know, like our mind, right, that talks to us. And so I don't know if it's my higher self or, you know, guides, but I definitely will get, you know, like I could have a whole conversation in my head all day long. You know? But then if it's somebody else outside of me, I find that I'm very empathic and I've got a way of being able to just connect with people on a very deep level and feel what they're feeling and experience from their perspective what's going on. And then I would see more of a movie, like you're saying, Chris, like, you know, kind of playing out. So I never really made that connection until I heard you say that.
Neither did I. I wonder if that's true for most people, that your intuition for yourself is different than your intuition for other people. I
Yeah.
never thought about it.
Yeah.
I think
What about you, Kat?
I think the conversation is different too. Like when it's somebody else, it's usually in conversation. And so that brings a different flavor into what is happening. So you're going to experience some different things in that realm. I sometimes physically hear voices, and I sometimes psychically hear voices. I sometimes physically see, and sometimes it's third eye see. Knowing, claircognizance a lot. It's interesting because there are pieces and parts of what all of you have said. I think one of the things that I seem to be able to laser into very quickly is, or what's made clear to me is kind of what's missing, what isn't operating well, what isn't flowing, what somebody isn't aware of. And my energy seems to bring that into their space as well, which is sometimes a little bit uncomfortable. And I have definitely seen movies as well, but that is not a common thing for me. And honestly, it depends on whether I'm speaking with people on the other side, whatever, souls, beings on the other side of the veil, or beings here. Animal communication always happens in different ways depending on the individual I'm speaking with. Sometimes it's waves of energy that need to be interpreted, where you're feeling what it is that they transmit to you, what they feel in a particular circumstance. It can be anything from how they feel about something to an experience, a past life they've had, even as a different kind of animal. So kind of getting to feel what it feels. It's weird. It's a mystery. Feel like you put on the clothes of that animal and you're in a place and you have no idea what's going on, and you have to sort of sit there in that and figure out where you are and what's happening and who am I? What's going on here? Sometimes it's like talking to a Harvard professor. Sometimes it's just like talking to one of us. Sometimes it's more emotions and body language, and sometimes it's visual imagery. When I'm communicating with people who have crossed over, it's like trying on a suit of a person. Like I can feel like what it is. I can feel who they are. I can describe them to you. And so I'm just sort of sharing what's coming, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. But it's like sometimes it's like I'm wearing them. I don't know how else to describe that.
That's interesting. I'm hearing the word like chameleon. It's it's like empathy plus. Instead of just feeling what they're feeling, you're experiencing what they're feeling. You're in that emotion instead of just getting a little bit of the.
Sometimes, but not always. I'll never forget. This is kind of funny too. I was standing in front of my refrigerator one night. My husband's watching TV around the corner, and I hear, this is going to be my best impression. This really is what it sounded like. I hear, "Please help me."
Oh God.
Right here. And I'm like, what? And I knew what it was. I knew what it was immediately, and I knew where it came from. But my person here, my 3D self was like, what? And I asked, so I popped around the corner and I was like, did you just hear? And I imitated it again. He's like, no. I was like, was it on TV? What are you watching? A commercial? Was it this? I actually took the controller and rewound it for a couple of minutes, looking for knowing full well that it hadn't come from the other room. It took me a minute to figure that one out. So, I mean, you never know what pops up. That's not a regular occurrence for me.
I would have peed myself. I absolutely would have peed myself. That would have been real.
Okay, so when I do that impression, and that really is what it sounded like. When I say that, it sounds scary, like scary movie material. It was not. That was I believe that was what the voice that came through. That was what the man was capable of doing to get my attention. And so that's what he did. And it didn't feel scary. It felt like WTF.
For sure.
but it didn't feel like what you might think. And that's interesting too, I'd like to say, because I used to be afraid of this. I think I used to suppress a lot that was coming into my space because I was afraid it would look or feel like a scary movie. And who knows how far it would go, and and that has not been my experience. Even with things that are like that you might think could sound that way. But as long as you're responsible with what you're doing, and you're in communication and working in the light, I have found that what shows up is what you're ready for.
One of the best pieces of advice I got about intuition from a very, gifted human was, no matter what's happening in front of you, don't attach a story to it. Because that's what we do, right? With our mind is we you have an experience like that and you're just going to go into total freak out mode when you're trying to figure it out. But if you just stay in that lucid space, like you said, it plays out exactly how it's meant to play out. You trust that you are, always protected and surrounded. And it's that law of attraction, like you won't attract what you're not thinking about.
And what you're not ready for. Yeah. You won't, especially if you're working with your guides. If you stay connected, if I pray before every single planned interaction that I have, and I walk through life that way. So, I think that's really good advice. I also think that's really good advice in the 3D realm, by the way.
Yeah, you're right. Because we're all just playing out, the story of our lives, if you will, right? And when you go into panic and anxiety and fear and mind, is it really truly helping anything? Because like I joke to my friends that, that I'm an expert swimmer, but I was really just on a swim team for years. But anyways, it's kind of like the running joke. But even me knowing how to swim rather well, I was in Mexico once and we were snorkeling and I got into kind of a cave and I saw some murky stuff happening and I thought for sure it was a shark and I just started panicking. And it showed me how quickly a situation can break down if you just let your emotions and you attach a story to it. And it was actually a scuba diver and he saw me panicking and he came up and he was trying to grab me, because, you've got to be able to calm somebody down in a situation like that. But I was so freaked out at that point, I punched him in the face. Oh my God. And I am not a mean person, people. But he was like, forget you. He swam off. I'm still like, getting ready to drown there in the middle of the open water. So yeah.
How did that resolve? How did you get yourself under control? I gotta know.
It's just like when you go into situations like that, you just have to. It's inner strength, right? It's
yourself together.
Yeah. Cause I've been in that situation a lot of times in my life. And it is interesting how I tend to go pull my focus inward, and then I'm just like, again, you're not attaching a story. You're becoming the witness. Okay. What's happening around you? Okay. Do you see shark, you just go inward, right? And you don't react. Yeah. You become non-reactive. I don't know. Cause when you're in that kind of state of panic, it's hard because your mind is just going haywire,
I myself am an expert trained horseback rider. I have a blue ribbon from 6th grade.
Right. That counts.
Does it say participation on it or does it actually? Because I remember those ribbons. Don't tell me. That actually gives me an epiphany, and I had not
Wait,
Oh,
I legitimately won.
Wait, your epiphany can wait.
I gotta hear about the ribbon.
I legitimately won a place. It wasn't first, but I no longer remember what it was. So it would have been second or third place in a barrel race.
Oh, you got a ribbon for a barrel race.
I rode a horse around barrels. Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Now go ahead. Your epiphany.
I just realized when I was younger, and even to this day, a lot of times my empathy would take on a story. Like I would feel like I was experiencing super drama. Like a person, I'll give you an example. When I was in the military, I'd gone to this week of training at a different base, and I met a group of friends there. And one of the guys really liked me, but I just wasn't interested in him. So one day he shows up at my base after the training, and he's just at my base, and I'm doing all I can to avoid him. I'm trying to be nice. At some point he ends up like sneaking into my room. So regardless, I got really upset and I told him off. For the rest of that night, my empathy was in such overdrive that I had this full image of him driving home drunk, getting into a car accident, doing all this other stuff. And I was convinced that he's dying on the side of the road. And I've had that experience many times with my empathy. And I realized what it was I was taking that emotion that I was feeling off of them and attaching an entire storyboard to it. And I had just never made that connection before. I always thought my empathy was a little bit off, especially if I'm drinking. We're not going to lie, there is alcohol involved sometimes. I had like I'm like, oh my God, he's dying. I got to go out there. I've done this to him. It's my fault. And he was sleeping in his hotel room. I picked up on his sadness and created a blockbuster movie.
Yeah. That's huge. You can really sit with that and think about and just notice how often you do that in any given day. Like I said, that to me was like, it's a pivoting moment when I heard that, because especially when you do have these, crazy moments that we all have, like you said, Kat, you're in the kitchen and you hear this like disembodied voice, or like what I described, it's just, that's what we do. And we make it so much different and more than it really needs to be.
Yeah.
We definitely overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
And Rhonda's on here, and she had a good comment that clear knowing is the hardest to self-validate. So people that have a strong, clear knowing doubt themselves a lot more, because you're coming up with new information. Just think about how awe-inspiring that is to come up with new information. This is not something on Wikipedia. This is not something you can go on and search. This is something that's coming to you that you cannot validate, and you have to have faith that that's real. That's a really hard one.
In human design, we have we look at the genetic DNA that's been activated in an individual, and it's almost like the meridians in the acupuncture system. There's meridians and channels depending on what has been activated in you, and one of the gates is called the genius to freak gate. And it sounds kind of funny, but it's an individual gate, an individual knowing gate. And it's because true individual knowing is meant to be mutative. When you think of genes and you think of DNA and you think of evolution, right? That's how we evolved. But usually it's not necessarily the popular idea, because it's the new idea and society's used to and comfortable with, other ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the genius to freak, because you can get information or this knowing. And when you say it, depending on the environment you're in, that's why environment is so key. Like we're talking about just being aware of where you're at and being the observer of what is healthy for you and what is not, and what is lifting you up the most, and what is allowing you to stay the most open, right? Because that is how we get more coming into our filters, and that is how the intuition builds and we get more confident in it. But anyways, the Genius to Freak channel is called that because depending on what environment and who you're talking to, and if they're ready to hear it, you're either going to come out like a genius, they're going to be like, holy smokes, how did you even know that? And you're going to be like, I don't know. I don't know. Or you're going to be the freak because they're going to be like, what is she talking about? She said Francis of Assisi's in the room. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's actually one of the most important activations, really, as far as driving humanity forward, is that channel, because it's those people that have to have that confidence, whatever, that inner strength. I mean, really, it's inner strength, not outer strength, to be able to speak even when they know what they say people might question.
And I think that's the most valuable information that exists on this plane. It's how we move forward. It's how new stuff comes into being. And I would encourage strongly everybody to voice whatever that is that comes through, and do it with confidence and share as much as you can, and stop this incessant need to only repeat what other people have already brought in. Only repeat what other people have already accepted. Only teach what other people have already accepted. I feel like the flavor that we add, whether we create something entirely new or we take information and create, like Chris was talking about earlier, bridge the information together and come up with something entirely different. That's so valuable. This focus on, I'm not devaluing science when I say this, I don't know how else to say it. This focus on what I can scientifically prove to you, and only that, it's got to stop.
Yeah, repeatable and verifiable. That's where the scientific community has got it wrong, because it will constantly hamstring their evolution on information. They will get to a point that they can no longer verify multiple times. But the information that they come up with is valid. You look at a lot of the stuff that they're talking about in quantum physics, they're spot on. They're just refusing to take that next step because they cannot come up with it through the scientific process.
Yeah.
So they completely limited themselves. They put on their own blinders in a field that needs to be limitless.
Absolutely. And that we've recognized throughout history, the geniuses who bring in, the genius to freak, the freak geniuses who bring in the most valuable information, the most incredible forward movement in a field.
Absolutely.
It's always
unfortunate, because a lot of times it isn't until after they're gone, right? It's years later that it's finally validated, like you are saying, or what have you. And it's just interesting how we do that.
Absolutely. And you look at like Galileo and all these famous people that were persecuted. They were called heretics. I mean, it was either you were a prophet or you were a witch, and history was going to determine which one you were. Jesus was lucky that he was called a prophet. He just as easily could have been called a witch, along with Muhammad and Buddha. There's such a fine line between a visionary and an anarchist in the eyes of society.
And they also have the fact that they were male on their side.
That does help. Yes.
There's always that.
Yes. The women are a little bit quicker to burn, I'm afraid. They were.
Yeah.
Yes. Our margin was a lot smaller. But I definitely would invite the audience to let your freak flag fly and post whatever you're coming out with on no dick pics. All right. I've gotten enough of those on Facebook. But to post,
We don't need that.
we don't need those at all. But post what the information you're getting here. Find a safe community where you can share what you're getting, because that is where the validation comes from.
Yeah.
It's not going to come from holding it, because I do that all the time. And Spirit is constantly reminding me, I am not giving you that information for you. So stop being stingy and start sharing it with the world. But it takes faith. It takes a lot of courage. So if this is a place where people feel confident, post it here. We will never poo-poo it. And I promise not to call it a freak flag again. I guess that might mean something else.
Loved it.
Well, your spiritual freak flag, your spiritual freak flag.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, the genius to freak. We have to have that in the world, right, to move forward. So it's okay, and it's not, the thing with that, like I said, it goes back to your environment. When you speak from that place of knowing that, you know, we've all kind of sounds like received in different ways, you know, that's your inner truth. You know, that's true. And so if people around you poo-poo it, that's them, right? You know, it's still your inner truth. So it needs to be said. And who knows, you have no idea, one of those people in that group that kind of laughed at you and made fun of you, like the kid on the playground, 2 weeks later or a month later, they might be in conversation with somebody and end up bringing up what you said. I've had so many, you know, gifted spiritual psychic, you know, people share story after story about that happening, where somebody said, you don't know what you're talking about, you know, and they just weren't ready to hear something. And then lo and behold, they end up coming back, you know, 3 months later for another session. And they're like, you know what, you're right. You know, that played out, or, you know, I finally realized, you know, I needed to hear it, or whatever. So you just don't know. So yeah, I think this is a beautiful, I think today's topic was just so beautiful and spot on. And I was just going to say, the whole point of me talking was, when we were talking about posting on Facebook, you know, having, for me, the environment, once again, this keeps coming up. So it must be a message coming up from Spirit today, because when I started to get and find that spiritual community, that I've realized the whole genius to freak thing, like I was like, oh my God, it's not me. It's like these people understand now what I'm talking about, and they're not looking at me like I'm a freak. And in fact, they're saying, you know, positive things, and they're validating and reinforcing. And it just helped me just catapult, you know, as far as opening up more and being able to help more people and getting my confidence on my inner truth up. It's amazing. And so that's kind of our goal with doing the Muses, is to create community and to create a safe space where we can all come together and share ideas. And who knows where this will go, you know, with social media and the global connection of today. Who knows what one of us might say today, or one of you might post, you know, today moving forward, that with all the changes and transformation we are going through right now, that could really impact things. So I'm just so proud to be a part of this.
Me too.
Thank you for sharing that. And you're absolutely right. Those are probably the two strongest ways to develop your intuition: to have faith in yourself, build that confidence, and then have a community to support you.
Yeah.
We don't do this alone. We are not individual beings living separate lives. And the sooner we grasp that, the happier our lives are going to be.
Well
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, because you know, when it's your inner truth, that it's your path, you're in alignment. And so just when you get that, like, ties back to the synchronicities and the validation, but when you can get that kind of just support, that tribe around you, it's like the quantum physics. It's like 1 + 1 = 3. The energy just grows on an exponential level. Yeah. And that's what communication is. It's just, it's a frequency, right? It's just it's getting that information out.
I have a question, totally unrelated. Did everybody do their smoothie this morning?
I did.
I did.
Day one. And I took a picture of my smoothie. I'm going to post it online.
Nice.
I didn't take a picture of me on the scale, but
that's on day 7.
Next time, yes.
Yeah, if everybody remembers, last week we were talking about, just nutrition, health, how important it is. And we all kind of agreed to do the smoothie challenge that Stephanie mentioned and recommended. And she said, start just changing out your breakfast, right, to a smoothie, for just commit to 1 week and see how you feel. And if you're doing good with that, she said, take it to the next level. And didn't you say do a smoothie for breakfast and lunch, and then just
little salad with your lunch if you're too hungry? Yeah.
Or you want something to chew.
Yes, or if you're like a avid chewer.
I need to chew my food.
I had somebody tell me, a nutritionist once, to chew my smoothies, because they said that there's something about when you chew and it activates certain I don't know, digestive things, whatever, but that would actually help you process the smoothie more. And I was like,
My
that's
advice to you, don't do that with anybody else because it's annoying.
doing smoothie.
Chomping the smoothie. That would be weird.
I don't think I would. Yeah,
Lose everything.
that one to myself.
I just got a message for you. The next level of human design is going to be groups. It's not going to be looking at a person's chart as individuals. It's going to be looking at them as groups. You're finding their soul groups for each other.
Oh my gosh, yes, they call it penta when in human design,
Wow.
and it's usually a group of, you know, like 4 or more, usually like a family unit, you know, that it's kind of like you said, maybe your soul groups, and it's really neat the level of information you can get from doing a relationship reading in human design, because you can overlay your chart with your group, or, you know, maybe one person, and you can really see how they operate and what makes them say and do the things they do. And it is unbelievably helpful and just creating a whole new level of understanding and interaction in relationships with people. So thank you for that, Chris. I'll do some thought about how I can bring that together. There are there's a movement with taking human design into the business world. And so there are a lot of people that are driving that and going into business environments and taking a team and, you know, really showing everybody, this is how you each work individually, and this is how you can come together best as a group. And even within the 4 of us, it would be fun to do.
Absolutely. I think of it just like puzzle pieces fitting on top of each other. We strengthen each other, compensate for each other's weaknesses, and bolster each other's strengths. And actually, the SF community, the Special Forces community in the military, is just like that. Each person has a specialty. They can all support each other's jobs, but each one has a core skill. And together, they're the team. As individuals, they wouldn't be the same unit that they are. They definitely wouldn't be as effective. So I was just seeing people's charts like overlaid and seeing where their bodies link up, where their connections link up. That would be really interesting.
Yes, thank you. I think the most helpful, when you're talking about relationships, thing you can do from like a human design perspective is parent to child, because
Yes.
the children are our future, right? And the sooner that we can understand who they are instead of seeing them through our eyes and who we are, and trying, you know, from the time they're born to make them align with us, and encouraging that uniqueness and their true strengths, and like we were talking about the genius to freak, that's how we change the world, you know. Yeah. Really. Absolutely. So thank you. That's amazing. I will definitely look into doing more of that.
You got to just pave that way. Guys, we are completely out of time. To everybody who watched this live, thank you so much for watching, for your comments. Thank you for sharing this video out. And remember, we will look at these shares probably about midweek, and whoever shared the most will get a Kat free 30-minute session to discuss her genius and how she can help support your living family, human animals, non-human animals, whatever it is you're looking to balance your life out with. Kat is your girl. Thank you guys so much for joining us. From Steph, Katie, Kat, and myself, this has been Muses. Please join us again next week, same time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, on the Muses group. Join the group if you're not a member. Post your smoothie pictures, post your information about channeling. This is the word of the future. This is the way of the future. We're a community. We are hearts. We ascend together. So until next time, light and love, and thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.